Hey guys, what's up? It's Hillbilly. So, on today's episode, um, you're gonna see me change out the transmission pan. I was wanting to keep the deep dish one on there, but after thinking about it and realizing that the crank shaft all the way to the end of the transmission is the same parallel. So what I'm gonna do, so everything from the front pulley all the way to the input of the transfer case is on one nice line. I'm gonna change out that transmission pan. So I got new RTV and um, I have another gasket and all that type of stuff. So it's not gonna be that big of a deal. So I'm gonna do that. I got my push rods for my valves and all that type of stuff. So I'm gonna install one of those. Because while I'll get in depth on that one. But while I was priming the engine with oil and all that type of stuff, I actually bent one of the push rods. So I will replace that, show you how to replace them, how to seat them, torque them, all that type of stuff. So yeah, that's all in today's. Pan off. So with the TCI Dragmaster kit, you get a steel nice filter for it. I went through and redid the valving on this. It's got a shift kit in it. Went through, replaced springs and ball bearings, replaced the springs up for the shifter. Went through the valves, replaced springs and shims and all that stuff. So we're looking pretty good. Now I just got to clean this gasket off. So I'm going to show you here why I wanted to put that bigger oil pan on for the transmission. As you guys can see, the size difference and why I wanted that deeper one for the extra oil capacity, so that way the transmission will stay cooler. But I'm also running that bigger trans cooler, so I shouldn't have an issue with that. So now I'm going to prep this one. This is what came on the transmission originally. So I'm going to prep it and put some sealant on it and the gasket and go from there. So whenever I put oil pans, valve covers, or any pan basically on an engine, I always take a ball peen hammer like this, put the round part where the bolt goes through, because when the bolt goes through, it actually pulls it and divots it the other way. So if you put the ball peen on it and hammer it like I just did, it puts them the proper way, so that way when you tighten it down, you actually get a nice even spread seal. So I like to cover the pan and the gasket with RTV, so that way when I put it on, it has sealed all the way around. Alright guys, so I got all the bolts all the way around, torqued down, and all that type of stuff. The RTV is squirting out, which is good. That means that it made a nice seal. And now I'm going to bring the transmission down and see where it actually sits, and hopefully it's sitting where I want it. Alright guys, let's see where we're at with where it sits. Oh, that sits a lot lower. I like that. Okay. So, where we are sitting now is, oh yeah, that's a lot better. And with how I want to make the trans mount and all that type of stuff, that's going to work perfect. So now that I got the transmission set where I want it, I'm going to be painting. This is the Valley pan. This covers the lifters, the push rods, all that stuff in the center of the engine. Because on the big block Mopars and the RB Mopars, the raised block Mopars, the intake doesn't cover it like the small blocks do. So I'm going to paint it the same color as the engine. Alright, so it's been painted. I'm going to let it sit overnight, so that way tomorrow I can install it. And it's going to be replacing that one tomorrow. That's what happened if you don't paint them. What's up guys? So it's the next day. Just got off work, got home, got everything organized, and now I'm going to work on the truck. So today's plan is to put on the Valley pan, which goes underneath this, my intake with my 750 carburetor. Both are Edelbrocks. Put in my valve push rod. These are my bolts to hold my intake. I've got new bolts and washers for my valve covers. I've got intake gaskets and valve cover gaskets. And here we go. Okay, so now I've got the Valley pan off and the valve covers off so you can see what's going on. And so I've primed the engine with the oil and all that type of stuff. And what you usually do is you take out the distributor, and there's a gear right there that you pull out, and that goes straight down into the oil pump right there. And you have to make sure that you turn the motor over so that way you get oil all over the place. I had it at top dead center, so I was getting oil out of my oil gauge out of this line. It was squirting out there, and I was getting a whole bunch of oil out of my passenger side bank. I didn't get anything out of the driver's side bank until I started rotating it over, and then I got it. But what happened is I thought this push rod, this push rod that was over here was doing the same as this one, which was completely free. And so I rotated the motor, ends up it was just jammed. It's not supposed to be like this. It's supposed to be perfectly straight. So I gotta replace that. So here we go. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure that all of your push rods are seated in the rocker divots. I'll show you those here in a second. And then once they are, you can tighten everything down. So before you put your Valley pan on, you want to make sure that you put enough goop RTV in the corners and across the back and the front. And then you put your intake manifold gaskets on. And then when you're done with that first step, you can go ahead and put your valley pan on. All right guys, so now the next step is to put your intake gaskets on. And I'm actually kind of excited because I bought these bolts and I didn't know that they actually had Mopar stamped on the top of them. And that's going to hold down my intake. All right guys, so now I'm going to put my intake gaskets on and finally put my intake on. So we'll set those right there. Set that one on. Grab a bolt. Align the gasket. Do one in each back corner for right now, and then I'm gonna do the centers. So now I'm gonna do the centers. But I'm just doing the gaskets nice and loose. And the intake nice and loose so that way I can move it as need be. Shake it around and all that stuff. So I'm losing daylight, so I will continue recording tomorrow. I'll let you know what I got going.